Okay, so hello everyone. This is a workload API integration meeting on Monday, 20th April 2026. So let me share the agenda. Yeah. So as you can see, we have 3 topics today. So Bartek is first. Is Bartek here or not? I think not.
Maybe
I
he's
don't
not
see.
aware, but
Yes.
use a different meeting room.
So let's maybe ask him async and move on to the second
Yeah,
item.
I will ask him async. We can continue.
Okay. So Anthony, do you want to go with yours?
Yeah. So just a quick heads up, based on the announcement last week, I opened the draft for the CAP for the composite podgroup API. Feel free to go through it and leave your feedback whenever you disagree with something, you see some gaps, or like you think something deserves like more rationale for decisions that are described in there. That said, like there will be still some reshuffling or like things that are yet to be covered in text. So whenever you see a to do, basically it's yet to be done or basically described. That said, even if you see like something that is tricky in some parts that you might think that we haven't thought of that previously, feel free to leave your feedback as well. And that's it from my side. I intend to evolve that draft into a real pull request this week, and I'll give heads up on that on Slack. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, good.
I would
Thanks,
say, I would just add that like the API is roughly fleshed out. So like there may be some tweaks, but I think we believe that it's what we want to have. So especially if you have concerns about the API, I think it's pretty much ready for your feedback.
Yep. I mean, the API plus Wojtek's comments that I haven't just addressed just yet, basically. But yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I guess I haven't looked at this, but I was kind of curious on, like, does this impact the beta plans for pod group or workload, or would this be kind of this would be a separate alpha and we're not blocking beta on this?
So it shouldn't block the beta of podgroup API per se, or topology-aware scheduling or workload-aware preemption. That said, the composite podgroup API as a completely new API has to start from the alpha stage. And that's how we'll be targeting it in 157.
Okay.
But
I mean, that's perfectly fine with me. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Kevin. No, I just wanted to say that like we want to make it like completely separate. So like that if something goes wrong and this will not be ready, but we will be ready for beta of like workload API, this should be possible. But there will based on the findings here, I think we realize that, for example, disruption mode shouldn't really be an enum, but it rather should be a union of struct. So like there might be some tweaks in the workload API and podgroup API based on the findings that we have here. It still doesn't change the plans to go to beta with the API because all the changes that we need to will be possible even if we would decide to keep V1 alpha to API, which I think we shouldn't. But even if we decide that we want to keep it, it will be convertible. So yeah, so there will like the TLDR is like it. There will be some changes, but based on that, but like it should be separate. Roman?
Yeah, just wanted to ask if this cap covers also the use case of disaggregated inference.
At least all, like with respect to all the requirements, apart from the one that we, like, I think this is still TBD in terms of like having the disruption policy. That means that denotes mean group count, or like do not preempt me unless I'm not able to satisfy the current mean group count. That said, I think this is still TBD. Like I don't predict that would go to alpha, possibly to beta.
But the concept of mean group count is included?
For scheduling, yeah. For disruption, this is still TBD.
Okay, that's a great step ahead, I think. And I think you said that it's targeted to 137, right?
For alpha, yes. And that includes this mean group count for scheduling aspect of the API, basically.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, so I think we still don't have Bartek, right?
Yeah, and I just got confirmation from him that he will not join today, so I think we can leave his item in the agenda for the next meeting.
All right, so we have item from Kevin.
We also have tomorrow a SIG scheduling in the morning, so we can. But the Kansai will be, I think, unavailable, so I'm not sure if we want to hold it or not.
Yeah, so for me, I was just thinking, looking up, it looks like May 30th is when the KubeCon talks are due for the main track. I was curious if anyone wants to, if we should consider submitting a talk for the main KubeCon track. I know we'll have the maintainer summit ones. Maybe I'll talk to some other people. I think it would be worth submitting something. I'll ask maybe when he was back. I'm think.
Yeah, I'm definitely planning to submit something. So let's go, but I don't have anything concrete. Like let's think offline maybe about that.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Yeah, I was hoping. Yeah, I definitely am interested in that.
Do you remember when is the deadline? I think it's still, we have still quite a lot of time, right? I think it's sometime
I think it's May 30th.
May 30th, okay.
Let me check. Yeah, I'm just thinking I'm out a couple weeks, so I was just trying to get ahead of it a little bit. May 31st.
Okay, so we still have like a little bit more than a month, so.
Yeah. But yeah, we can continue talking about that. That's all I have.
Yeah, let me also ask around like what our management plans are versus with respect to like who they expect to go there and so on. So, and I will get back to you like in a few days or so.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, hi guys. My question actually about the composite pod groups. I also like need to spend time to review this, but just just a high level question. Do we kind of, I mean, from my understanding, this is for hierarchical scheduling, right? And also we have separate discussion around pod subgroups and pod subgroups, or whatever we're gonna call them, right? I'm wondering, like how these two separate APIs will be related together.
So both of those APIs target the same problems. Like both are ideas for targeting the same problem, meaning satisfying hierarchical scheduling requirements. And the CAP has a rationale why we abandoned the idea of pod subgroup and pod subgroup or pod set, whatever you call it. The TLDR is that with the model where pod group is serving as a top level scheduling hierarchy, you have the ambiguity in which it either stores, it either serves as a parent for pods or pod subgroups, and the same you have for pod subgroups, which individual pod subgroup can be like a group of pod sets or pods, and basically we decided, or like I think there was an alignment during WAS Design Summit just before KubeCon Europe, where instead of like going downwards with the current API, there was decision to basically grow above the current API with some higher level API, like composite pod group, basically.
Yeah. Actually, I think it makes a lot of sense because if I remember correctly, in one of the docs we discussed, I don't remember exactly with whom, maybe with you watching, but I think having an API which allows to combine multiple pod groups within the entity is definitely something can cover multiple use cases around grouping, right? And I think for the long term, I think it's even better than having this introducing this like subgroups. So I think it's definitely a good design.
Yeah. So like in one of sections inside the CAP draft, like I think it's near the end of the CAP, I put the rationale about like among the alternatives, I put the rationale why we abandoned this idea among some other alternatives that were considered as well.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, like, and in terms of the, like the API we're going to introduce in composable pod groups, we kind of like, because I think we need to have a discussion on the array, right? And other scaling constraints. So we do have this, discussions how those aspects can be groups there, right? In a way that, for example, if you want to share the same resource claim across multiple pod groups, or that should be possible, right, as well.
So I haven't touched base on the array just yet. Regarding autoscaling, I'm probably out of context here. So Wojtek, maybe
Okay.
if you could chime in here.
Sorry, I was chatting with like offline. Can you repeat the question? Sorry, are you?
Yeah. I just ask about the resource claims, right? I think we did have some conversation previously how we can share the same resource claim across multiple pod groups. And I guess like my question is, in the future, do we envision that those composition can also be used across all the scheduling constraints, right? Including the
I
array.
think that in general, yes. I would like to avoid putting everything into that cap. So let's like the same way we have like a separate cap for the DRA constraints for like pod groups. I would also like target like that expansion to a separate cap. But like in general, yes, we should definitely discuss that. Like I'm not sure I have a use case immediately on my mind, but I'm definitely not excluding that at this point.
Andre, you also mentioned something related to auto-scaling. Am I right, or did I mishear you?
No, I think autoscaling is definitely separately, right? I think I remember like we also have this doc with the SIG autoscaling, right? That we track how the pod groups can be integrated with, Kube, with the different autoscalers, right? I just don't know where we are there.
So there is like a new series of meetings under SIG autoscaling where those are being discussed. I think the meetings are on Tuesday. I guess Pavel, I'm not attending those because they collide with some other stuff for me. But like Pavel, who I see here, is attending those. So Pavel, if you can give a little bit more details.
Yeah, so the meetings are on Tuesday, 1 hour earlier than this meeting. I've sent like a meeting link on the SIG Scheduling Slack channel. If you want to get like invite, I think you need to join the SIG autoscaling group. This gives access to like a shared calendar, and there should be meetings to the should be an invite to the meeting.
Yeah, I think for the scaling, we definitely need to get the feedback from the inference guys, because I think for disaggregated inference, I would imagine we will have much more complex use case, or much more complicated use cases, right? Like, because again, you need to kind of have a way to separately scale up and down your pre-fill and decode phase of inference pipeline, right? So yeah, I mean, we definitely need to get those folks here to talk about it.
So, like, are you talking about replica set or something like this autoscaling, or like the cluster autoscaling required to like provide capacity for those workloads?
Yes, I mean, yeah. I mean, like, if it's, for example, like if we're talking about disaggregated set, right? New entity under leader worker set, right? And basically it, disaggregated set has, two or multiple leader worker sets there. So I'm not sure in terms of, composable pod groups, how those entities should be, scaled up and down.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I think this is more about like HPA support for disaggregated
Yep.
inference. So I think the SIG autoscaling meeting might be a good place to ask about this. The meeting which Wojtek mentioned and which I was talking about is more about like node autoscaling or cluster autoscaling. So this is for the cases where new nodes needs to be added to the cluster, and this seems like a use case for HPA, and this is usually discussed during the SIG autoscaling meeting.
All right, so do we have any other topics to discuss today?
I can add that the TAS and VAP is still ongoing, the discussion from the last week agenda, especially I wrote last week that we will extend the doc with the third option, and I think this sparked yet another discussion because the third option requires some changes in the scheduler and in the preemption process, but it probably will offer the significant speed up in the preemption. And that's it for me.
I actually
Okay, good.
proposed to split the third option into two different ones. So the one to run over all the topology domains, and the second one to run preemption globally. I think those two are probably could be considered separately.
Yeah, I saw your comment, but I haven't had time before the meeting to answer it, so I will probably answer it tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay, so I think we can conclude today. So thanks for joining, everyone, and see you on the next meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.